welcome back into another episode of the All Things Dead podcast. The hiatus has come to an end. We are going to get this thing ramped back up. Welcome back into All Things Dead podcast, a refresher. This is a podcast for everything in the Walking Dead universe. We have episodes on there from Fear the Walking Dead, not this past season. We have a couple from the COVID times, those 6 extra episodes we got for the Walking Dead. But we are going back and rewatching the entire Walking Dead series. So this is for people who just want to revisit the Walking Dead. This is a podcast for people that maybe have never watched it and they want to get some thoughts out. These are me getting my thoughts out. And what's cool about rewatching it is, even though I remember things that do kind of happen, I don't remember everything. So it's great to go back and revisit. So we're going to discuss the Walking Dead and continue. Like and subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel, and there's a playlist for the All Things Dead podcast. That's where you get this. The podcast can be found anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. It is everywhere that you can find it, but you got to subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel for right now until it becomes its own thing. If you subscribe to that, you'll get alerted when a new All Things Dead comes out. We're going to pick up right where we left off. It's been a while. But it's fun to go back and rewatch some of these episodes. So let's continue on. We are picking up right where we left off. We are now on The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 3, Save the Last One. And we are not quite picking up where we left off at the very beginning before the intro. But the last time we saw the group, Shane and Otis were trapped at a school trying to get medicine for Carl. He was shot by Otis in an accident. Lori and half the group have made it to Herschel on the farm where Carl is, but we pick up with Shane. This episode starts with Shane shaving his head in a shower, so it looks like Shane has made it back, but we don't know how. He's shaving his head, just kind of looking himself in the mirror, so it kind of is foreshadowing something. You know, he's made it back, but what has happened? How far in the future does this go? And that's how we pick up this episode. With that, then it goes straight to Shane and Otis in the school running from walkers. And one thing that I forget about that you have to really pay attention to is it's very how creepy and scary The Walking Dead. I mean, it's still at the end is, but how scary this episode starts off with Shane and Otis running, and the walkers can actually run. We call them walkers, but they're running. And you know, they're trying to escape. They have the medicine that they need for Carl, and the group is still separated. You have Daryl, Carol, Dale out at the RV still with Andrea as well. One thing you can start to see is that Daryl goes to leave to go find Sophia, who they're still missing, Carol's daughter. You could tell it's bothering Daryl, seeing Carol so upset to go find her daughter. And I think you're starting to see that. I feel like Daryl's just this onion, and you're starting to see peel back. We saw at the beginning of season 1 how he acted, and we're starting to peel back a little bit of the layers for Daryl. But we keep going back and forth in this episode. This episode literally goes to a bunch of different spots, to the groups at the RV, to Shane and Otis, to Rick and Lori at the farm, and it keeps going back and forth. And you're seeing Shane and Otis still fighting to get out. They have the medicine, they have what they need, but they're surrounded. And you're noticing how walkers are climbing up the stairs, and that's something to pay attention to, I think, as this episode continues. You're still trying to fight to escape. Watching this episode, you could already feel a foreshadowing type of thing. We get Shane at the beginning with the shower, and now what's happened? It shows them fighting. Does Shane get bit? Those type of things. Does Otis make it out? A big part of this episode is the conversation of Lori and Rick. Carl is not doing too well. Rick is giving a lot of blood because they are a match. And Lori and Rick's conversation is basically a part of her does not want Shane them to make it back. Not that she wants him to die, but is basically questioning to Rick, why should Carl survive this? Because she's basically saying we live in a world that's maybe unlivable. We're fighting day by day to eat, to be safe, to get away from the threat of the walkers, and is saying, if Carl doesn't make it out of this, is that the worst thing? Because he doesn't have to deal with everything that we're dealing with. Rick just basically looks at her and says, to surrender, that's kind of what you're saying. And he brings up a good point. Remember at the CDC where you asked to give us a fighting chance to go out there and let us fight and have us make the decision? Well, what has changed since that moment? And Lori just doesn't know. She just feels like Carl should not make it. So this is very curious to have a mother start to say those things, especially when Carl wakes up and she's so happy to see him awake. And so to continue on my hatred of Lori, this is one of those things where it just continues to pile up a little bit. It's bringing back why I never liked Lori. There's only one or two good things she ever did, and this is one of those things where I never liked. I don't hate the actress. I just hate the character, and maybe that's what she was going for. I'm not sure, but if that's what she was going for, she has knocked it out of the park. And so to see Carl wake up and see how happy she is that he woke up makes you think otherwise. Another duo that we kind of get to see is Daryl and Andrea. They're out looking for Sophia. And to kind of have them together. And Daryl, again, we're seeing this onion being peeled back. Straight up asks Andrea, do you want to die? And she says, I don't know if I want to die, if I don't want to die. And this is just one of those things in this world that we're picking up on in the show is they're fighting to survive because it's human nature, the fight or flight type of thing. But at the same time, is it worth continuing on because of how bad the world is? But we're seeing Daryl kind of peel back a little bit. He was this crazy yelling person in season 1. And already in these first 3 episodes, he's showing us more and more of who he really is. Rick finally gives Lori an answer saying life is worth living. There has to be way more than this. There's no reason why we need to give up. There's no reason why we cannot stop fighting, because that's the easy way out. We have to continue to fight because that's just what we do. And there has to be way more to life than what we're getting here. The biggest part of this episode that we keep waiting on, because it's a lot of flashing back and forth. And you only get like about 2 minutes here. They would flash to one spot for 2 minutes, the next spot for 2 minutes. So there's a lot going on. We get a flash to Shane and Otis really fighting for their lives, and they have a plan to kind of split up, to kind of get walkers away from one or the other, and they're working together. Like Shane is really saying, we're not getting out of here by ourselves, but they both end up getting hurt. Otis has to jump down from those bleachers they're on, and he hurts his knee and his leg. Shane has to drop down from the building and hurts his ankle as well. So things they're just going from bad to worse for them as they continue to fight to try to get out. And it really does bring us back to how scary and on edge you are when those things happen. And, just to see all of that going on. And so we see them trying to fight. We see Shane and Otis, they split up and they get back together. And we see them, they only have a couple bullets left hand in hand, and they are running from the horde, if you want to call it a horde, which is a group of walkers together, running from it. And then it immediately splits to Carl needs to have surgery because they're at their last moments. But then at that last second, Shane pulls up in the truck without Otis with all the medicine. And this is kind of where we're starting to wrap up to get to the point of the beginning where we see Shane, shaving his head. So now we see Shane get back, but we have not seen how. Did the injury catch up to Otis? How did Shane get out? Everything else. Is Otis still out there? Rick and them ask Shane what has happened, and Herschel asks what happened. Shane said that Otis told him to keep going. He would cover him. He would take some away to cover him. And then he said when he turned around, he saw that the walkers had swarmed him and he was basically getting eaten. This is basically what he has said has happened. And you're very sad for Otis in this moment. Shane looks very distraught, very... It's a weird look that he has. He looks like he's seen a ghost. He looked very panicked. And it's just a weird look that he has on his face. We flash back to our group, and we finally get not quite closure from these two characters, but we finally get them to talk. Dale had took Andrea's gun from her because he was afraid of her committing suicide, and he basically apologized for how he was handling things. He doesn't want to force Andrea to live if she doesn't want, and wants, to go back to the way things were. Andrea says she is trying to forgive him, so a little bit of closure there for those two because there is a connection between those two characters, and so it's really nice to see that. Herschel is doing surgery on Carl, and it comes back saying he is stable and should be fine. They'll keep track of everything. But they have to figure out how to tell Otis's wife that he is now gone. We still see Shane. He still has the exact same look, this pale and shock type of look that he has. And so is it a feeling guilty type of moment? And as I am watching this, you feel like Shane's lying. With the look that he has, John Berthal is an amazing actor. And he was born for this role as Shane. You just feel like he's lying. You feel like something isn't right. But from the flashbacks we were getting, maybe because of how Shane acts, maybe because of the things with Rick, maybe because of and Lori, is he lying? Is something else going on? We're not 100% sure. But he still has the same look. But we get another weird moment, and this just adds on to the Lori thing. Rick is helping tell Otis's wife what exactly happened. Shane goes walking into the room with Lori and Carl. Carl's asleep. Lori's checking. Shane just basically kind of asks, is he okay? And yeah. And then she looks at Shane and says, don't leave. Because remember, Shane wanted to leave. Told him at the church, I believe, and Andrea had overheard in the previous episode, a couple episodes ago in the first episode of season 2, saying don't leave. So it's just weird that Shane does something like this for Carl. Now Lori is basically just saying stay. Like, you had this moment where you didn't want Shane around them at all. And it just, this weird dynamic connection between Shane and Lori. And, Shane is in love with Lori. Lori is not going to be with Shane because Rick is back and they have the son, which was weird because you were with him before when you thought Rick was... It's a weird thing, and it just adds on to the whole Lori thing of why are you wasting time with Shane messing with this when what he did at the CDC, basically had his hand around your neck, and said these things, was forcing you almost to do something that he didn't, to almost rape, essentially. So it's just a weird dynamic there. Herschel, his daughter, Maggie, we have a couple scenes with her and Glenn. They keep talking back and forth. So that's another weird thing that they have this little connection. We finally get to how we started the episode. Shane gets some clothes. He can go take the shower. And this is where Shane really starts to kind of unravel. And he starts looking at scratches he has. He starts to shave his head. And then we finally get to see what has happened. We get the flashback to what we talked about earlier with Shane and Otis running from the horde. They are shooting at the walkers with their bullets. And then just right then and there, Shane looks at Otis and says, "I'm sorry, man," and shoots him in the leg. Otis falls down. Shane tries to get all the equipment off of Otis. They have this tussle fight. Otis is fighting, and you're like, Shane is going to sacrifice Otis so he can get the stuff and he can survive and get back to help Carl and probably look good to Lori. Yes, there's a part of Shane that's going to wants to help Carl, absolutely 100%, but he's doing this to look good to Lori. So he and Otis have this fight. Otis is fighting for his life, almost wins. Shane gets away with the equipment, and you see Otis really getting eaten by the walkers, and that's exactly how Shane escaped and got there. And this, to me, watching this, definitely is foreshadowing something with Shane, because you saw Shane the way he acted in season 1 at the beginning. Just a different leadership style. Wasn't anything crazy of how they need to survive, how they need to do this, because he's a police officer, and the way he's lived can survive and do those things. But as it continued on, he is slowly starting to unravel, and doing something like this really seems like this world is starting to consume him, where, as you can tell with Rick, he still kind of wants to live as close to the old way as possible. You know, in the first he says, we don't kill the living, we don't do this. And Rick's really trying to hold on to that, I think. Shane, I feel, watching this, is letting this world that what it has changed into is now he's changing into that, which you feel like something's going to happen with this group. He and Rick have already had disagreements, the thing with him and Lori, but now Lori is asking him to stay. So the mental state of Shane, the way he looks into this mirror, I don't think it bodes well moving forward. This episode was a good episode. It was not a filler, as you'll see in The Walking Dead. Any show, the more episodes you get, they're fillers. The only thing with this episode is just going back and forth. We have these different spots. You have a flash forward, a flashback. You have guys at the farm. You have people at the RV, and then at the RV, and then also looking for Sophia, and then also having Shane. So you have about 4 different spots that they've been at. Then you also have different interactions with Maggie and Glenn. Still a good episode. Like I said, there's really no bad episode here. Just kind of going through some things. You can tell the time frame isn't that long. But another great episode. It would be fun to see what happens with Shane and the rest of the group and his mental state. See what happens with this new people that we've met in Herschel and his family. So we'll be moving on. And the next episode will be season 2, episode 4. That's the next episode we'll be talking about and recapping. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. There's a playlist there for the All Things Dead podcast. There's episodes out there. We have done all of season 1. We're on to season 2 of The Walking Dead. There's a couple Walking Dead ones on there from the COVID times, and we have a couple Fear the Walking Dead ones. I'm going to try my best to get to everything. It's very difficult, but we're back from the hiatus. You can find the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Please follow and rate it. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. My name is Coach Steve, of course, from the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching or listening to All Things Dead podcast, and we will see you guys next time.